Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Vinny's Take. Before I get started and get too far, I just want to mention that I am currently watching live baseball. Yes, it is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, and I'm watching exhibition baseball between the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. It's the bottom of the third, and Boston leads 4-2. Okay. Speaking of Blue Jays, before I get into what the title of the show is, the Toronto Blue Jays are a team without a home in 2020. It was announced yesterday that they cannot play home games in Toronto. The Rogers Centre is closed, and because of all the restrictions traveling back and forth from America to Canada, it would just be too difficult for them to play any games at home. So there's some talk of them going to their Florida training site. However, some of the players think it's too hot down there. And there's also talk about getting the Buffalo Bison's stadium ready because that's their AAA affiliate. Thursday night, baseball's for real. Basketball and hockey coming back within the next 10 days and to wind down their seasons with championships somewhere around September. Let's talk about September, and let's talk about the panic going on in not just the NFL, but in football all in general. I put NFL in the title, but football in general. We don't have a guarantee that anything is going to be played right now in the NFL. So while I'm talking about baseball and hockey and basketball coming back, there's tennis, there's golf, there's soccer, there's NASCAR, there's fishing going on. Football is up in the air. Why? Well, the NFL never bothered to get everything set with the players as far as safety procedures going. So although the tagline on Twitter yesterday that was trending was "Let's play ball" or "We want to play" or something like that, it's still unsure that we'll even have it. Today they did announce that they're canceling the entire preseason. They have agreed to terms with the NFLPA on that, so there will be no preseason football. So the next NFL game you see, if it happens, will be on September 10th as the Kansas City Chiefs host the Houston Texans. But why are we panicking in the NFL? Well, part of the reason there is because Mark Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, has come out and said there may not even be an NFL season. And I'm not sure that's the tone the NFL owners wanted to establish. I'm not sure that that's what they sent him out to say. He talked about some scenarios of delaying the season, starting on time, and possibly not even having a season altogether. I think you got to make every effort in putting on a season. I think players have expressed concerns of what happens if they test positive. I know on a conference call a couple weeks back, Philip Rivers asked us what happens if he tests positive before the Super Bowl. And somebody really should have asked him is why does he think he's going to be playing in the Super Bowl? But I know that it's changing up a whole lot of stuff. The New York Giants and Jets, or New Jersey Giants and Jets, whatever you want to call them, we're told that they will not be allowed to have any fans at home. Same with the Philadelphia Eagles. So there are going to be games that are fansless, but the Jets should honestly be used to that these days. Okay, what else is going on in football that is causing panic amongst the football world, and not just the NFL? College football, the Big East, the ACC, and the Big Pac-10 have all announced that they will only play conference games because apparently in the Big Ten, Michigan, you can travel to East Lansing, you can travel to Ann Arbor to play the Wolverines or the Spartans, but you cannot, for heaven's sakes, travel to play Central Michigan, Western Michigan, or Eastern Michigan because those schools have got the virus, apparently. I don't quite get that. I could understand they're going to come out and say, all right, well, we're only going to do regional play and we're going to rework some of the schedules because I'm sure some schools could all find common. But for instance, Notre Dame right now, why'd they cancel games against them? They're in the region, and Notre Dame has lost some 3 or 4 games because of those conferences making those moves. Notre Dame, of course, is a team without a conference, as well as UMass and BYU. So expect Notre Dame to play a lot of Minutemen and Cougars, apparently. I don't know. Because I'm sure more conferences will panic and pull the button. In 1AA, or FCS, as it's now called, the Ivy League, the Patriot League, the CAA have all announced no fall sports. None. The state of California has come out and said no fall sports for high school. So powerhouses like Mater Dei and all that, hopefully they get to play a spring season because, you got some kids who are on the bubble of whether or not they should be recruited, and now they just lost their senior year. I understand the panic and the worry and the threat and the fear over the coronavirus, and I get that. I really do. But at the same time, you've got to make every effort to get, these life back to normal. We know so much more on July 21st than we did on February or March 13th, March 11th, or whatever it was when the NBA had the first positive test in the sports world and it closed down the entire sports universe. We know a lot more now. For instance, there are colleges like North Carolina had some 37 positive tests a couple weeks back, and they took a week off. They didn't cancel, didn't panic, didn't cancel everything. They just took a week off. Let the kids recover, especially if any kid gets the symptoms seriously and end up having to go into the hospital or anything. It's time to stop, slow down. So what am I suggesting? Well, this is what I'm suggesting. Continue testing as the NBA is, as the NHL. The NFL needs to put in the testing. Sure, get rid of preseason. Nobody watches it anyway. I mean, you might watch the first quarter of the first game just to, it's football. Or you might put your team on in the background just to, look, shiny football. But you're not really paying attention. I mean, when Jake Anderson from East Texas Tech University is playing quarterback for your favorite team, you're not watching. You know he ain't going to make the team. So I'm not really worried about the preseason. But let's do everything in our power. Let's get it done. Let's make sure that on September 10th, the Houston Texans are playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and we get to see Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes do it the way they know how, and that is excellent quarterback gameplay. Now, the next topic is a little bit more difficult that people don't really necessarily want to talk about and probably don't want me talking about it, and that is the social justice campaigns going on in the NFL. The NFL apparently is going to approve to allow players to wear social justice logos on the backs of their helmets. But yet, 5 years ago, when 4 or 5 Dallas police officers were assassinated, the Cowboys could not honor them in any way. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to allow social justice campaigns, especially from police brutality, you also need to allow when police have been shot, and allow, especially good police who've been assassinated, to allow teams or players to honor them as well. If we do a quick Google search, police officers killed in 2020. From FBI.gov, 32 law enforcement officers have been reported feloniously killed in 2020. During the previous year, in the same time period, 25 were killed, so it's gone up. So those are numbers that are startling. Those are numbers that are embarrassing to anybody who's trying to hide the data or trying to float the data into your own political spectrum. Those are real numbers. Those are officers. Those are humans. Those are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, wives, husbands, children, nephews, nieces. Those are people who had a heartbeat, and those are people who deserve better. So all I'm saying, if you're going to honor people unjustly killed by police, you need to honor the police when they're unjustly killed by assassins, by felons, by murderers. It goes both ways. The NBA is doing something where you get to put on the back of your jersey, instead of your name, you get to put on a social justice campaign or a name of a victim of police brutality. And some guys like Jimmy Butler are going to go nameless. And that's catching fire too. Apparently some 20 to 30 NBA players are going to go nameless, and that means something else. And those are the kind of protests that, although I'm not necessarily thrilled about seeing, because I like to, especially in a sport like basketball where I don't follow heavily, I like to know, well, who's number 10? Oh, number 10 is Black Lives Matter. That's okay. What's his name, though? I don't, put it somewhere, figure it out somehow. So just make sure that I can see that number 10 is so-and-so, and his maybe on the bottom, it said, or maybe his name is on the bottom, because the NBA did that too, where they had jersey names on the bottom one time, or nicknames they've done. So the NBA has played around with concepts like this before, so that's fine. Unlike a lot of people who are going to totally friggin' boycott all sports because of kneeling for the national anthem or the social justice campaigns they don't agree with, I'm not. I deal in sports. Sports is my life. Sports is what I love. It's my passion. I can't work in sports, but I do these videos where I talk about my take, and I talk about sports. I had a coworker today. He's excited for the return of hockey because that's his favorite sport. But he also told me that he could not support anybody watching sports. And I tried to play devil's advocate, but he wasn't hearing it. So now playing devil's advocate is getting harder than it was in 2016 or 2017 when the protests first started. And I've made videos. If you want to see what my thoughts are on that, go back and check them out. But let me play devil's advocate now. Right? These players are human beings. These men, these women, depending on what sport you're watching, are human beings. And they are influenced by what they see. Same as you or I. You watch the news, you see something, especially if it's the only news you get, you believe it. You trust them. And especially professional athletes who are spending their day on their body, perfecting their physique and being at the tip-top shape, they don't necessarily have time to do a lot of research like I would or you would to look into what's actually going on. So when they see something going on, especially if it angers them, they want to support it. And they should be allowed to. That's the beauty of America. But at the same time, you got to understand that those of us who see things differently or have different facts or want to support different causes may not agree with you. And that's not a bad thing either. So the way I look at sports now, I put it in a vacuum, all right? It's something to entertain me, just like movies, television shows, music. It's to entertain me. I wouldn't watch it if I wasn't entertained, okay? I don't watch soccer because soccer doesn't entertain me. I don't watch tennis because I don't like seeing two people grunt. If I wanted to watch that, I'd watch porn. Okay, I watch sports that entertain me. Football, basketball, hockey, baseball, NASCAR. Sports that entertain me. But I don't have to support every athlete out there. I don't have to support every cause they support. They whatever. So to me, when I was younger, especially with the NFL, I couldn't get enough. I'd watch all the pregame shows. When we got cable in '96, I'd have ESPN on, and I'd watch, every NFL Live and NFL Today, and CNN had an NFL show, and this one, that one, the other thing. And before you knew it, I was just did nothing but watching football. Well, I don't anymore because it's useless. It's the same things over and over. It's everybody else trying to get their own opinions over. It's just a bunch of talking heads, kind of like this one. So I don't watch it. I don't. With a game now, when the game's on, I'm not watching the pregame festivities. If I walk into a room and the national anthem's on, I'm going to stop, I'm going to stand, I'm going to put my hand over my heart, and I'm going to support it. But I'm not looking at the TV. I'm looking at a flag that's hanging in my living room. Because that's how I feel about the national anthem. When it comes to the NFL, though, they are not getting money out of me this year. I will not be buying merchandise. The Buffalo Bills had I bought before the draft is the last thing I'm buying for the time being. I'll not be buying EA Sports Madden. That has other reasons why I won't buy that one, and you can check some of that stuff out on Sack of the Future videos. I will not be paying for any tickets. Of course, in my region, the Giants, Jets, and Eagles aren't having fans, but I won't be going to a game this year. So I will not be spending any money other than what I already spent on cable, internet, what have you. I'll be playing the old Madden, last year's Madden, year before, whatever. But I will not be buying anything new. I also am not going to be one of those guys that go out and I'm offended and pissed off at something, so I'm going to burn all my gear. Because that does nothing either. They already got your money on that. If I were to take this mask and burn it, the company that made it already got my money. All right? So that doesn't make any sense either. Boycotts don't work because they're not suffering. If you don't turn the TV on Sunday and watch the game, they're not suffering from that. They're getting their ratings. Trust me, the individual person in the individual house does not affect the ratings. That's not how ratings work, especially in the day and age of the internet and NFL Game Pass replays and all that. So that's where I stand. I don't root for the names on the back of the jerseys. Growing up, I had my favorites, the Jim Kellys, the Thurman Thomases, the Bruce Smith. But nowadays, in today's free agent world of sports, they're a dime a dozen. Players come in, players go out. One year you might be rooting for LaShawn McCoy with the Bills. The next year he's in Kansas City, and you're rooting for Darryl Singletary. So really, if Darryl Singletary next year is on the Jets, I'll have a different running back to root for. So I don't root for the names on the back of the jerseys. I root for the logos, the names on the front, where it says Bills. That's what I'm rooting for. So now this next part might be hard for some to hear, but to me, really, the players, they're just a piece of the puzzle. I am watching to be entertained. They happen to be the ones who are performing at the time. Same with a movie. You turn on a Spider-Man. Whether you're watching Tobey Maguire or James Garfield or whoever the hell is going to be playing Spider-Man next, you're watching Spider-Man. I'm not rooting for or watching Tobey Maguire. I'm watching Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Anyway, That's my take. I am really hoping there's an NFL season because NFL is my favorite sport. Like I said, I've got this baseball game on right now. It's exhibition. Go Red Sox, and I'm really very much looking forward to the start of play Thursday for reals, y'all. But I don't know why I just did that. But until then, at least I've got some live sports on my TV on a Tuesday night, other than NASCAR, for the first time since March. Let's get sports back going. Let's get ready to rumble. And until next time, I'm Vinny Vincent. God bless America.